Radio.
John Doe Radio.
It's the John Doe Radio Show.
How much higher can you get?
Well, what the president said during the campaign, you'll be surprised to know, will be consistent with what we'll be doing here in law enforcement.
And now talking about legalizing marijuana and taxing marijuana to solve budget problems.
Prohibition doesn't work. Maybe after 71 years, it's time for a new approach.
We should be able to give our kids the message we think is appropriate.
A rational, safer choice.
Great celebration of freedom.
Legalize the possession of marijuana.
John Doe Radio. Live.
What it do, kangaroos? Hopefully you're having a fantastic day, wherever it is the day is. What does this do? That's the button I want. Why is that one over here now? This dynamic mode. Oh, it's because I have Twitch open. Twitch has replaced that little dial right here. Actually, let's go ahead and mute Twitch there. Does that mute? That does mute Twitch. And then this mutes this. And we're good. I love it. Thanks for hanging out with us. It is the John Doe Show, the John Doe Radio Show. John Doe Show doesn't fly off the tongue like the John Doe Radio Show. It's just the John Doe Radio Show. Enough of the talk about dumping the radio. We don't need to do that. It's fine, okay? It's fine. Saying that to myself, not you. Today, a wonderful Tuesday. It's probably, in some of your locations, already Wednesday. So, I hate to mention the times or the dates on anything like this. You never know when you could come back and listen to this. Whatever time, whatever date it is, whatever feeling that you're in, here's a big hug and a big doobie. From me to you. Second day with the awesome stream deck we got here. We're also going to get into some cool stories today, not just the news. I've got a... we'll get to that in a second, but once again, if you're just hanging out with us, we got this brand new stream deck, and this thing is like saved my life. I love it. It's the most awesome thing in the entire world. Yesterday I said I gotta learn the file folders and stuff. I still have yet to learn that. I did learn how to drag and drop some profiles though, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right, the dynamic is the next one we gotta sort of hop into and tackle next. See when that white screen is on, it gets super bright. It's almost overly bright. Let's see what I can do about that. Give me a second here, guys. I told you here this good week or so, we're probably going to be kind of editing things up a little bit, trying to make sure we get everything that we have set up and all these professional things looking good. Look, man, it's almost the light I got in front of me and reset. It almost takes out the dark circles. See, when you get a little bit of a shadow, we're getting into way brighter than I am comfortable with range here too. So I'm giving up comfortability for professionalism and presenting a product that everybody can enjoy at homes while looking at this ugly face. I'm gonna try and make this face look decent, better. See what happens when I squint? Then I look like 25, 45, 25. 45. Doesn't help with the gray beards and all. Let's go here to webcam filters. Actually, I think it might be under properties. Configure video. Let us turn down the gain a little bit and see if that does anything. No, that's not. Anybody that's watching that has anything to do with video, first of all, go ahead and laugh. I know, it is funny, it's hilarious. Second of all, send a message. Help me me out. See, when I cover the white screen, we need dark mode for everything is what we need. Hold on here. I'll shut up in a second and move on. I'm boring myself. Right there? I like that darkness a lot, so I don't know, we'll just leave it right there for now. It'll look decent. But then when I click off of this, whatever, deal with it. Maybe we hire a professional off of Fiverr to get in for $5. And like, you do this with the setting, you can do this with the setting, you can do this with the setting. Anyway, today also, say hi to Mini JDR. He's gonna chill with us here too sometimes. If the camera fails, you know, if we go out, then, you know, you guys are not alone. You got Mini JDR there with you. We also unlocked 2 emotes yesterday, so we have 3 complete emotes here on the John Doe Radio Show. I'm thinking about doing the art myself. Might be a mistake, but you know, I think I might maybe do the art myself. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But we got 2 more coming. Goddamn, big, massive thanks to Bike for those donations yesterday. Brought quite a few people in. I think it was like, I mean, out of the 15 gifter that you did, I think it brought in 10 or so people just hanging out. Like, popped up 10. All right, I was going to try and keep it chill and relax today, but not so much as where it doesn't make any sense or have any flow. So let us get into it. In the news today, what we're talking about, where did I... give me 1 second to search this because... Actually, I'm just going to refresh here. You guys want to see what I'm looking at? Let me get to where I'm at first. All right. Let me see here. Display capture.
Boom, went right to it. That's what I'm talking about.
And if I push this button right here, I can actually hit second display capture. Boom. There we go. You guys got all the mammoth jam. There's you guys right here. And then back to the main display. And then I hit my webcam. There we go. Oh yeah, I was going to do a border. I didn't get to a border. I'm going to do it's seemingly the formula with Twitch is like the bigger the cam you have, the better you do, even if you're ugly. So should I make it bigger? And then fade the cam over to the left a little bit? Don't fall. Wait, that's the wrong way. Oh, it's definitely going to fall off sometime in the show since I touched it. Maybe trim that left side a little bit. All right. Fantastic monologue today. By the way, you can listen and watch JDR shows here on Twitch. Just go to the videos tab and bam, it's all there. Some of those are going to go away after about 2 weeks, I think is what it is for the affiliates. But anyway, they're all uploaded within usually 24 hours. It gets finished. By the end of the day, I usually have it up over to YouTube. So YouTube, bam, let me bring that up actually real quick. I was watching whoa, keep forgetting about this whole deal that we got going on here. I was watching the Starship test. Hold on a second. Let me can we actually get the sound from the Starship real quick? I was watching another video. This is not the one. Hey! Usually people start to show up in chat a little bit later too. About a half an hour into the show or so. Plus I'm thinking that this like 1, 2, 3, 4 clock hour to start the show time in is not the best. We're going for early morning, but we're going for it. We're going for it, ladies and gentlemen. When shall we get there? No one knows. Wait, where is this launch at? Give me the launch, damn it. All right, there we go. Right here. Let's see if we can get audio.
I left it off.
Oh, this is those guys I was listening to. Hopefully we won't get DMCA'd.
Wow. Wow, look at that.
This guy's freaking out. Hold on. Let me actually get to the sound part of this. Because listen to this, it sounds like a rap. There's it right about here. Wait, I'm too far. Yeah, this is from today. Just that sound. Oh, yep, that's me. Dude, it automatically switches controls like on this thing. Like I have everything sitting here. It automatically switches to it. So amazing. Anyway, that is so like a lot of people. This thing's like an actual controller. I gotta learn how to run it. So like a lot of people, I have fascination with, you know, space flight, SpaceX, and all that good stuff. And yeah, today was the Starship SN9 flight launch. That was what you were listening to there. Oh wait, should we? I mean, we can't really go that whole thing. We can't really show that and then not show the explosion, right? Oh, Rain Man didn't see it. We definitely gotta show it. This is 100% newsworthy purposes, but these guys are using their own stuff though. So big shout out to them. NASA Spaceflight. NASAspaceflight.com. These guys cover the SpaceX stuff quite heavily, and it's just the first channel that pops up on my YouTube when this kind of stuff has come up live. I think there's also like the Boca Chica girl and a few other ones, and then SpaceX I switched over to, which I didn't actually watch this video of the crash. Hold on, let's see this. Wait. Okay, yeah, hold on. El Mito. Playback speed. Let's go double.
So everything, so like I said, it's playing, everything's still on.
So right about here. See, I need the dynamic thing taken off of this so I could just have this up. So right here, what's happening is this second engine was like firing, kind of trying to right itself, and then it has actuators. I don't know what they're called exactly, but anyway, there's 3 engines here, and they're able to be manipulated by a motor. So like they switch directions, angles, all that cool stuff. So I'm sure you know if you follow all this stuff, but that's how they're able to do this shit. I'm just fast forwarding it because this is like a 6-minute long fight, and you haven't seen the end of it. We'll do bike here. Let me finish this bit here, and I'll check them real quick, unless it's super emergency. So right there, the engine. Wait, that's not it. Goddamn, isn't this the dopest? I should watch the SpaceX one. I was trying to show you the part where the thing flipped upside down.
So they are hovering in the air right now, 10 kilometers.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. So it's starting to like hover and shit right now. So it's got that engine, and then it hovers, and then it flips itself. Shit, my bad. God dang. Like I told these guys in chat, they're never gonna let me off this rock. Even if tomorrow we were like started taking flights to space and they were like launching people to Mars, it was cool. They would never let me off this rock. Ever. You think we're gonna let John Doe spread to the rest of this earth, or spread to the rest of this universe? You're kidding. You're joking, man. They would laugh me straight out of the room. Yeah, hey, none of us. You're not getting off either, bro. Bike. I mean, we got to develop our own. That's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to build our own empire. At least my idea of building my empire is to, get off this rock. I thought about it, and I'm like, man, would I go crazy in space? What would it be like? What would it truly be like? Would you be able to handle the bullshit of space and the craziness that goes on? And just the solitude of everything, being stuck in one place. Oh yeah, let's do it. I've been training for this for my entire adult life.
The team confirms that was a normal and on-time and nominal engine shutdown.
This is actually going a lot slower than I thought it was going to go. Hold on.
Well, when that final engine shuts down, it will reorient for the descent.
Which should be
Sleeping and shitting would be the worst part. I wouldn't say sleeping. Going to the bathroom would be the worst part, probably. One of the worst parts of all that. That would be. Yeah, that would be. But see, here's the deal: is it doesn't seem like it's that much of an inconvenience up there. Like those guys are up there for a long time. Yeah, it would take some getting used to. That's what I'm saying. Would you be able to handle it? That includes that. That's what I'm including in that, is like the feeling you get of uncomfortability. Okay, here we go. So here's that engine. Cut off, and then the other one's cut on. Flips this mamma jamma.
And here we go. No way.
And then this bitch it literally just belly flops back to Earth. It's got these little propellant things on the side of it that guide it back to. I mean, they're flying this thing. It goes back to the landing pad where it took off. The launch pad where it took off. Like the fact that they can, dude. I mean, the fact that we actually are able to do shit like this is astronomically insane to me. All right, let's try and go here. I think we're pretty close. The SpaceX shot was like right under it, like literally on the launch pad, right under it, and you watched it come down on top of you. So I'm not sure exactly what this view is.
We should be getting close here now. That's amazing.
Here we go. Yep, there's two engines fire. Whoops, I'll just flip. Wow, that was the first time I saw that view. God dang. Oh wait, we missed it. Hold on.
And here they go. What this landing looks like.
Web scroll. Oh wait, what this button scrolls the fucking. Dude, I just put the button right here. Like, watch. It's jogging. I gotta reverse it. It's jogging the video.
There we go.
Did you know I paid a lot of money to go to school to learn how to do that? Oh. So I gotta learn. Left is back. No, left is forward. Right is back. That's gotta get flipped. Okay. We found that on accident. So here we go. Damn it, John, no. Get this shit right. Pause that. Web scroll back. Wait, now it's the volume? Wait. Okay, it's obviously not programmed correctly. Listen, we just got this stream deck today for everybody that just got here. We're listening to this stuff. Let me turn up the volume. So that's what I was trying to do in the first place. We're going to get to cannabis news here in a second, but this is absolutely amazing footage of s1s9 launch and guide back to Earth, belly flop action. It was beautiful.
Now.
Let's listen to it, though. Because that sound at the end was...
Oh, there we go.
And the flip looks like they lost a piece there.
Listen to this.
Woo! Wow!
Shut up.
Stand by for audio.
Yeah, I'm not having great control, but I'm trying to get the camera pointed there. There we go, I got it.
That's my posh.
I imagine you were having great control.
I tracked it the entire way.
I know. I was watching.
Sorry.
I think I left the frame for maybe a second.
Dude, it was that is dope as hell. Now, why the hell?
Here,
let's take it. Media track control. What does that one do? No, that's not it. Does that pause though? If I hit pause?
So
yeah, that pauses. This web
left.
scroll does the audio now.
Down.
Why is that?
Past it. Oh, Michael?
There we go. It just selects whatever you have, I guess. All right.
It didn't. I mean,
but anyway, that was very cool.
Like the engines had the same issue they did last
too
time,
fat.
So it will be interesting.
Why can't they land these bitches yet? This is the second one.
What they say was the issue.
You know what's funny? Here's the deal. The first time, okay, so this is the second time that we've seen this. With the FAA wasn't happy the first time, apparently. I don't know what happened wrong with it. But Elon Musk went dark like early this morning, probably in prep of this, because he probably knew he couldn't trust himself to say anything. So who knows? It would be weird if the FAA was pissed about anything they released information or said online was critical, because he was heavily critical of the FAA. There's two different sections of the FAA. There's the FAA that handles planes and all that normal stuff that you think of the FAA, and then there's a space FAA, which shouldn't exist. I mean, it's overly burdensome government red tape that probably exists in that. And here's the deal. Who knows better about what they're trying to do right now than SpaceX? Legitimately, like, we may have had NASA, and NASA may have gone to space and done the things that they're trying to do and got there safely or whatever. But, or whatever. You know, they've done what they've done. I'm not discounting that knowledge at all, but the fact is, it's a government agency. The slowness and the red tape that goes along with that is probably just ridiculous and astronomical. And we're not in a day and age where the size of a freaking computer fills an entire room. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, I think a Nokia phone or something like that, what was it? A Nokia phone had enough technology on it to launch the space shuttle. And, or was it Apollo? I think it was the Apollo. Listen, if you want to learn about space stuff and you want somebody really cool to check out, she's from here in Colorado, Skylias, Skylias. She analyzes stuff, super like one-to-one type thing. Not anything like, you know, where she's super smarter than you. Blam, here we go. Hold on. Actually, you know what? Let's, while we're doing this, you know what I can do? I can switch this to, wow, we're going to use production at its very best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this over to here. The only problem is we need a third screen over here so I can have OBS because I can't see OBS now on this screen. So I'm going to blind hit this. Nope, that's not going to work. Let's just go ahead and flip to OBS that way. We're going to have to show you second display capture. Display 1 and 2. There we go. And then Alt tab that. And you guys should be able to see that right there while I'm looking for this. Okay, there we go. You guys watch that while I look for the SpaceX one. See if I can get it here. Okay, there we go. I got the SpaceX one right here. I'll show you the view from underneath it when it lands. It's very cool. I think it's funny how we just completely forgot about. I mean, this is weed, right? Yeah, this is weed. Weed. So this is that view from the NASA spaceflight dudes, nasaspaceflight.com. Give me my audio controls back, please. Ah, fuck it. I still got some controller planning to do with that thing, obviously. So let's go back here to second display off, main display on. Bam. When it's smooth though. Let's turn that down a little bit louder. Oh wait. Right here, turn it down. All right, that's good enough. All right, let's watch this one. This one's super dope. Super dope. Turn up the video here.
10 seconds into flight, we're down beneath 1.5 kilometers.
So this is
we're preparing to
underneath.
restart 2 engines, flip the vehicle vertical, then transition to 1 engine for the landing burn.
Sorry. Listen, I have my hand on what I think is the volume button, okay? There's the volume button. Now it's going to switch back when I go, so let's hope we have it set at a good setting. That second explosion just is perfect. I love it.
Oh, is he?
The second explosion. So what I think happened, I'm a rocket scientist. I know what I'm talking about.
2 engines.
Hold on here. Man, no wonder why so many streamers are React Andes. This is easy content. Half speed. Should we do half or 0.75? Let's do half.
Flip the vehicle vertical, then transition to 1 engine for the land.
Should we leave him in there? Right. Why did it go off? All right, so what it looks like here, man, can we get it even slower? Yeah, let's do it slower. So what it looks like here, when you notice, like the only, I'm just obviously amateur watching here, but like I watched the first one over and over and over. And what it looks like here, this engine doesn't fully fire off. I mean, it's supposed to be 2 that writes it and then 1. So that thing, like there's never really a solid boost out of that Mamma Jamma until it shuts down. and then you're left with one. And as we saw from the first video, you know, it flips itself over, like right here. In the last video, in the first launch that we saw, when it was coming down and flipped itself over, it did go a little bit too far. But then you could see the two engines that were like, God damn, so cool. Lightsaber raptors correcting this thing and straightening it up. You did not see that in this one. So Elon Musk said the first launch and landing, and why there was a problem was there was like a depressurization, not enough pressure inside the tank to continue or whatever, blah 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 blah. And we had double the people here a minute ago. People just wanted to watch the explosion. I kind of want to capture this audio and use it for audio in the future. Yeah. Oh, and then I was finished what I was saying. The thing brought itself back, and you could see it kind of like bringing itself back in the last one, and then where it kind of shut off and failed. You kind of see how it was going to work and how it was going to correct itself. In this one, this bitch just flipped on its side. I mean, it's almost impossible, unless you've stood next to this thing, to probably understand the size of how big this fucking thing is. I mean, I'm from Colorado. I've driven through Kansas, the Midwest. I mean, it looks like a silo. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like some farmer rocket scientist. It's like Rocket Man. You know that old video, that old movie, the Disney movie. Is that what it was called? Rocket Man, with wasn't it the dude from Tomb Raider? What's that guy's name? Not Ethan Hawke. That's the other guy. Brendan Fraser. Isn't Brendan Fraser in that Mamma Jamma? Yeah. Anyway, it's like he's like creating this thing on his farm, and puts a couple Raptor engines under this bitch, and boom, there we go. We got Rocket Man. Whoops. All right, that's enough of that.
Oh, I see. Let's get cameras up.
And then SpaceX just kind of like...
the ability to transition the test flight. Second time we've flown Starship in this configuration. We've got a lot of good data, and the primary objective to demonstrate control of the vehicle in the subsonic reentry.
Look at the second one right here.
Look to be very good.
Oh, Blunny was right. It was right there.
Out of that.
I didn't even notice that. I was so paying attention to this.
Wrap up today's webcast.
I thought it was like way back here.
Thanks for logging on and watching, and we'll be back with another start.
Dude, isn't that crazy though that SpaceX is so confident in their abilities that they... Elon Musk last week was like, there's one of two things he could have been thinking. Number one, the Elon Musk way of thinking of like, let's roll this Mamma Jamma out. Confident, we're going to land the first one. We ain't got to worry. Any other company in their right mind wouldn't put their just priceless, not priceless, but nobody else is making anything like this. One of a kind. There's 10 others sitting right behind here, actually. You know what I'm saying? One of a kind to any other company spaceship right there. And it's like, park it. We're going to land it. No worries. That's some balls, dude. There's not another company that would put that shit on the line. Unless they were lining this thing up for flight directly right after. Which is probably the case. So, the crazy thing is also this coming down in the energy that it's like, it didn't completely wreck the landing pad the last time. So it knocked chunks out of it, but they still replaced the whole landing pad. I don't know which one it was, one of these two or whatever. Maybe not even one of these two. But they replaced the whole landing pad. Like you're the You're the dude that gets contracted to replace the SpaceX landing pad.
In the near future.
They're just like, why don't you just stand by for a year or two? It's not going to take them a year. Like I said, I was actually very surprised they didn't land this one, which is kind of ignorant and just goes to show how successful SpaceX has actually been in these endeavors. When it comes down to it, you're like, oh, they didn't, like, Mr. Rain Man there, like, oh, man, they didn't land it.
Why aren't they landing these things yet?
Dude, you know how many rockets they've landed? The goddamn rockets in the ocean out here in the friggin' ocean. Right out of here in the waves, way deep. No problemo. Do it regularly anymore. So I'm pretty expectant. I think the problem is they got to get that. The problem is that they're having, and why I think they did this past month also, they did a bunch of static fire tests. Like they just stopped and refired the Raptor engines a ton of times. Like they were going to do it 3 times, I think was the plan or whatever. And you're watching the film and this thing's just like 9 times or something. It refires. Elon Musk is like, again, if it dies, it dies. Again. Hell yeah, dude. That's what it's going to take. And that's why I think kind of like what we were talking about before with the FAA, me jumping around with everything and being distracted. The FAA Space Agency not being in touch with things and, moving at the snail's pace that we have in the past with stuff like this. Yeah, I just think I don't think we're prepared necessarily in some ways for what
Elon Musk has brought to the table.
We weren't really ready for private space flight. It just kind of happened. Like the government had given up for the most part in a lot of ways in funding and research and an idea of moving forward in space. Anything other than just like, I'm going to cargo carry this shit up there and service the space station. It was ridiculous. So we kind of changed that with SpaceX and some other companies coming into play. They're the ones that have proven that they can do it. I had dabs on the bottom of the screen there. But yeah, they're Virgin, I think it is. What's the other company? Launches the big ass rockets. Anyway, it's cool. It's very cool. But yeah, that surprisingly came up today. I saw that and I was like, that's dope. Do they only ever launch from that site? Yeah, I think that might be the only site they launch from. For those. I just don't know if those are the only 2 pads they have. So they might have more pads on top of those ones. All right, let's get to some cannabis news. Actually, I think I gotta use the restroom here in a second. But let me preview what we're gonna get to today. I have a story. I don't want to open my Facebook here on screen. So what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna end up reading this story when I get back. So Steve Bloom, who is former High Times and he's a legend in the cannabis industry and an OG. So a lot of these OGs are what makes a guy a legend. Well, an OG is a legend. Somebody who's been around putting their ass on the line. To me, people that have, been doing journalism, awesome stuff like that is pretty cool. Anyway, very interesting guy. He also operates a page on Facebook called Celeb Stoner and does a lot of news still. And then, obviously know a lot of people. He knows a lot of people in the industry that do cannabis news. I'm going to read you a story I thought was pretty interesting from one of his friends about the last concert they ever went to before COVID started. Now, this guy's friend is Stu Zakim. Guy is a former vice president and corporate PR at Showtime. Vice President Corporate Promotions at Playboy, Vice President National Publicity at Universal Pictures, former Director of Publicity at Rolling Stone, former various things at Columbia Pictures, blah, 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 blah. Lives in New Jersey. God, and I was like, reading about that dude in Steve Bloom, and I was thinking, you know, bike, and the friends that we have, like, in the Hood Lab days, I can't imagine if it was like anything outside of Colorado, in maybe Cali, in LA, Miami, New York, any of these places, and it was kind of like that center of attention during the boom of cannabis times. What kind of people and what experiences we would have got to be a part of during that time. I mean, it's obviously purely just pipe dreams and thinking, but it's something cool to think about. Anyway, I will be right back. I gotta use the restroom. Where's my... Okay, there's my audio. Thank you guys for hanging out. It is the JDR. Yeah, look, I can hit this button and scroll up the audio at the same time. Hold on. I gotta refill Vape Nation. Yeah, I gotta get that. I'm gonna have to go through that. Oh no! That's not good. Dripped. I'm so distracted by the fancy thing. I dripped juice on the mouse pad. That's not good. It's gonna be greasy. God damn. Luckily we got some good old alcohol that we have hoarded. Can't find that 91% in Colorado, man. I think because of COVID, everybody went into overdrive production, so now you can kind of find it, but not really. Oh, I hate myself right now. That's going to affect the gaming if we don't get that off. And no wonder why we're losing listeners. Maybe we should just talk about space the rest of the show, because it was like a handful, a grip of people then.
Idiot.
All right. Where was I at? Oh, yeah. Filling up this thing. I'm just trying to chillax, have a good time with the show. I would like to plan on doing I would like to plan on just trying to stay online as much as possible. We'll see how things go. Not necessarily with JDR. Maybe pick up some games, whatever. But you got to be live. You got to be fishing to catch the fish. So that's what we try and do. All right, I'm getting into news, guys. You have gallons of 99%. Yeah, Does the face look a little bit better today as far as like lighting? I think it kind of does. Especially when this the white screen is up. Like if there's a white on the screen, almost a little bit too bright with that white. All right. Anyway, news today that we'll get to. I have that news story, and I apologize I didn't even get to tell you guys what I was going to get to the rest of the thing. We got distracted by the rockets. So what I will get to later on today, since we talked about the rockets first, and I was going to talk about this first, is yesterday, It's Blunny, the homie, gave me a suggestion, or was talking about a specific way of curing cannabis, which let me pull up this page because it's right here. This is what brought me into this idea. All right, we got to switch that to 1. Display 2. All right, there we go. So Malawi cob. We'll talk about this. I'm not going to go into this 100% today. This is what just gave me the idea. And a way to cure cannabis. So if you're looking to look that up, we'll go into that. But I'm going to go into something else first. We've talked about it a few times on the show, but this article is a fantastic article about the oldest evidence of marijuana being used and why some of the earliest use of cannabis and some of the earliest use of burning the product may have not been for mind-altering purposes. Probably weren't for mind-altering purposes for various reasons, but there are certain situations, there are certain specific scenarios that have happened, because what can happen will happen, I guess, that type of shiz. But there's a specific spot that they talk about in this story where they think some of the origins of the first use of cannabis for mind-altering situations is they're able to document. So things may have happened before this. We just don't know. That's the problem with history, and especially with ancient history, is things get lost. Sometimes the winners are the ones who write the history. History gets destroyed. It gets rewritten. Tons of different things happen with history. But what we do know and what we can say are things that are documented and tested. And there are ways that they tested it and are backing these findings up with, what is it? What the fuck is that name? It's funny when you can remember details of things, but then the big words come into play. Chromospectrography osmosis or something like that. You know what I'm saying. And we're also going to be talking about, first, we'll get to Democratic Senate leaders announce steps to federally legalize marijuana in 2021. This is a follow-up to the story that we talked about yesterday, and basically what we've been talking about since Biden got into office, decrim versus legalization, etc., blah, 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 blah. These two, I think, pretty much the same stories. This one's just updated. This was yesterday's story, and then this one was updated today. I think this one is more just leading on the feedback of this Senate chairman and what he wants to happen. So we'll probably cover both of those. And then I don't think, did we get the psychedelic mushroom thing filed in Florida? I don't think we talked about this one. Connecticut and Florida continuing on with the psychedelic law reform for mainly for health purposes. And the reason why this is happening is not necessarily just because of, pro-drug reform across the board and cannabis legalization being the catalyst for a lot of that. It has to do with studies that have come out regarding PTSD and veterans and the ability for you to reset your brain or work through trauma with psychedelics and a trained professional. I am a firm believer that this is something that we are missing in the human blueprint. I think that this whole talk about AI and, plugging yourself in with computer and stuff, that stuff's cool. That's great. But when it comes down to the reprogramming of your own brain and removing the rose-colored, the dark-colored, the blue-colored, the gray-colored glasses that get put over your eyes through every experience that you have, good or bad, your views and your personality, maybe not so much as your personality, but the way that you are, the way that you act, all affected by these things that you go through in life. And then also a natural, in ways we're not talking about experiences here, but, a natural misbalance of chemicals inside of a brain being another thing. So without fully understanding exactly how to solve that in every single person, we do understand that therapy and working through these issues and understanding what the basis of the issue is, being aware is one of the key things. So two things with this. Not only can you get to a point where the rose-colored, but we'll just say rose-colored glasses are removed, and you have an ability to kind of see things more clearly through a more pure point of view and get to understand those things more, not have these influences. It's kind of hard. I don't know. It's silly and kind of hard to explain if you haven't exactly been through the psychedelic experience and understood that. But if you do add someone that is a trained professional, mentally is experienced guide in trips like this, for people that have, maybe horrible experiences, that are going through PTSD, stuff that affects them in a social and mental, maybe even physical manner, the blueprints and the open-ended ability for you to go in, pull back the covers a little bit and start fixing in and clinkering in with those things, tossing them out, working through them becomes, and this may not be for everybody. I have a belief that it probably is for everybody with the right professional. You have any ability to be able to reprogram that stuff. And I think that with therapy is something that could be an incredible addition to who we are, and could be a missing step forward in the evolution of like the human brain and creativity. Something that we just forgot about and skipped over for years and years. I know there's some pipe dream thinking in all this. It's crazy thoughts, whatever. But the fact is, this is what science and medical professionals that are involved with this are saying, and the fact why these things are moving forward realistically. Yeah, so it's cool. We talked yesterday about Virginia. Virginia voters support legalizing marijuana in a new poll as lawmakers rapidly advance bills. We're going to stay up to date with these Virginia bills, as I told you, and in fact, let's go ahead and go through this one first, since this was the last of the ones that I was going to get to today. So that's the news we're going to cover today, and then the oldest cannabis ever found. Obviously, if you guys have any questions, please feel free. Let your friends know. Pass this on. All right. I do think for a second there of where I wanted to head with stories, and then after this. I'm also kind of surprised that we spent an hour on the rocket stuff. That was pretty crazy. Maybe we'll go back to that later. Maybe I'll just play Hitman. Kind of feel like just zoning out and being stupid and goofy in Hitman. A strong majority of Virginia residents, including most Republicans, are in favor of legalizing marijuana for adult use, according to a new poll. We have a couple people that have listened to JDR for a long time, since we first started the show, really, that are from Virginia. Why we had a dude in here yesterday that was asking about it. The cool thing is with JDR, and I don't want anybody to think that, this is weird to say. We've attracted some extremely smart, talented, creative people here on the show to give input and get feedback from. Some very smart, talented people have looked to us for, who am I kidding? Have looked to me. I'm just kidding. It's true too. Everybody that's been involved in the show, people have looked to for guidance in some sort of way. Many times, not just one or two people. It used to happen all the time. When cannabis was this big, massive idea of legalization being floated around, and when Colorado was leading the cause in all of it, we had media and people from all over the world messaging. A lot of people messaging to get weed sent to them, but, I haven't had that happen in a very long time, to be honest with you. This is probably the friends list has dwindled down. Everybody has me on ignore too. Anyway, yeah, we got smart people from all over the world to tap into, and getting back to that's going to be cool. But also at the same time, like yesterday, it's like, I think that the things I think about the things I say a lot more now than I used to, getting older. That's obviously a no-brainer for a 5-head statement to make, but I do think it's important, especially now, rather than before, when you were kind of like inferring things, analyzing things. We had lawyers. I think I have pretty good understanding and ability to analyze specifically cannabis type stuff and give a good, honest, educated analysis and opinion on these type of things. But I think anymore, like with this where I'm going with this Virginia question was asked in chat yesterday. So, do you think Virginia is going to get it done this year? And it's like, do I know enough right now to answer those type of questions about individual states like Virginia? I'd like to think that I do, and I like to think that I got that right. But those type of things, they weigh, and being critical of companies, another part of things, that we want to be careful of. I mean, there's a company I'd like to just absolutely rail on right now, but at the same time, if we had 1 million people in here, what does that affect? How does that affect? Not necessarily concerns for, what we're building here, but I think about the good people that are there, instead of maybe the people at the top that don't deserve it. The amazing people that have moved to this location and had these great experiences, I don't want to shit on their parade, but at the same time, it's important to be honest about things, but be careful what we're being honest about. And does it affect consumers' ability to trust a good product? And if you want to find out other things about certain things yourself, and discuss that, maybe we can. But, you know, we leave those things maybe out of the confidence that I would like to instill in you when it comes to cannabis. I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to think about. Wouldn't pass on so much hearsay and talk as I used to, I guess is what we're saying. You won't see that as much. But let's finish this article and then we'll continue our opinion on what we think is going to happen in Virginia. Because I did say yesterday, by Friday, they had to get this done. It's now Tuesday, end of session. It's a good chance this week that they're spending, well, it just depends on how dedicated these people are. Last week of the session, good chance that they're spending extra overtime in there, but it's 4 o'clock here in the Mile High, 6 o'clock. Is it 6 o'clock in Virginia? Oh, they would definitely be getting into overtime times. A survey published in Virginia Tuesday by Christopher Newport University's Wason Center for Civic Leadership comes as bills to legalize cannabis have swiftly moved through multiple committees in the legislature ahead of a key mid-session deadline to get them to floor votes on Friday. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Friday is the end of the session, so they have to get all this done by Friday. There's 2 bills, one on each side. The House and the Senate has a bill, 2 separate bills that they're passing through. And they both have to get through committee, make it to the floor. It looks like they might get through committee. I should probably just end up reading this and I stop talking personally. But, once they get to the floor, there's not enough time to argue things. You know, even if it made it to the floor tomorrow or today and there was a vote on it. Yeah, I mean... They would have to be committed to getting this done. And it doesn't sound like to me, as I mentioned yesterday, that Virginia lawmakers are committed to 100% getting this done. They would have introduced it sooner than a week before the session ended. Less than a week before the session ended, because Saturday and Sunday, they didn't even do shit. They had 5 days from Friday when they introduced this bill to get things done. And most legislative people on the East Coast don't get things done shit quick for crap. That just goes that way for all government things, but the West Coast seems to be a little less red tape in times than places like Virginia's and Commonwealth. There's too many people. It's really what it comes down to. There's a lot of people out on the East Coast. Asked about the policy change, 68% of respondents said they were in favor of legalization. The problem is when you're asking if people want to legalize, people are going to say, yeah. Like, you're not going to have a situation where, like this, the poll is not going to explain the whole bill to everybody. I need to quit thinking of 3 things at once so I can actually put together a statement without pausing. Even if it's marijuana moment, local news station, CNN, whatever, it asks if you would rather legalize cannabis, decriminalize cannabis, or none of the above. It's not going to say, hey, here's the outline of the bill. Do you want to legalize? And in ways, the lawmakers bastardize the will of the people in that sense, because they cut and chop the legs out of these bills, and they just are unable to walk. They're unable to go anywhere, unable to grow, unable to form into fully grown bills, fully grown regulated industries. But it's the truth. As funny as I make things out to be, and as silly as I am, that's the God honest truth there. Voters in most states should be given the opportunity to vote on the widest available framework. Period. Like limiting things and having this draconian way of operating carry over and bleed into this regulated market is a failure, and just putting unneeded pressure and unneeded burdens onto people's civil rights and onto an industry that has proven that it doesn't need it. You know, we have countless states, not countless, don't make it sound bigger than this. We have states that have done the regulated thing. Open shops, sales are happening, the sky did not fall. States are making money off of these things, benefiting heavily off of the taxation of cannabis, and at the same time, we're not seeing health problems off of this stuff. None at all. Even if we were to try to hide any issue that we're going on and not talk about it and not address it face to face, it would be an issue that would be so glaringly big and be covered and focused on nationally, locally, wherever it was, that it would be impossible to ignore. It'd be the first thing we think of right now. But the first thing we think of when it comes to the failures in cannabis and regulation, legalization, etc., are the laws that go along with it, are the states that haven't moved things forward. You know, we're still sitting. Nebraska, Kansas, perfect examples here in Colorado that have led to us having, you know, overly burdened laws and rules past where we should for longer than we should, because they've held on to an idea that legalization is ridiculous. That this idea that cannabis will kill you or, you know, is going to harm you, that is equal to heroin. Some of them argue it out to be less and less anymore. But then what do you compare it to? It's hollow talk. I gotta quit looking up at the viewers. It's hollow talk. I feel like the viewers represent my ability as a host to do my job. That's not the case. Somebody hit the crying soundbite, please. 68% of respondents said they were in favor of legalization, compared to 32% who said they were opposed. Legalizing marijuana got the most support of any of the three criminal justice proposals included in the poll, which also asked about ending the death penalty and eliminating mandatory minimum sentences for certain crimes. A demographic breakdown shows that legalizing cannabis enjoys majority support from every group surveyed. Democrats were more likely to embrace the policy change. God, this light's right here. This is so bright. That's good. I'll just stand right here. I'll just put my hand right here the rest of the show. I legit have never worked in a studio with lights like this. It's a new thing. Demographic breakdown, we said that. Democrats were likely to embrace the policy change, 80%, but a slim majority of Republicans, 51%, also favored recreational legalization. 64% of independents are on board. I gotta be careful with my voice today. I don't it feels like it's gonna blow out. I blew out my bag. Young people aged 18 to 44 backed legalization at 79%, whereas adults 45 plus support the reform 57%. Black people are more supportive of legalization, 78%, compared to white people, 65%. Here's what I'll say on this. In some areas, and maybe this is a case of a certain group of people not wanting to report, not necessarily just black people, but, you know, anyone that's really non-white or even white people. But do people really want to report using illegal drug, even when it comes down to cannabis? We do see more and more accurate surveys of these things. We talked about yesterday the federal survey that's going out that's more detailed on collecting economic information towards cannabis, states that have legalized and have sales going on, like Colorado, trying to get a grasp on exactly what the exact dollars and cents in everything, which is important to the future of other states looking at these things if they're just looking at the money of it, which is silly. I hate that part of it. I hate the things that I'm saying right now being a catalyst for change, because it shouldn't. The actual civil rights of people is what these... If you're going to care about and you're going to legalize cannabis for monetary purposes, that should be the second reason. The first reason should be that you don't want to see people put into jail, and you don't want to see the civil rights violations that have happened. All right, that's the right way to go about this stuff, because any other way, you've just proven how much of a shiesty asshat you are. And if you're going to do that with cannabis, and you're like that with this, you can't look at the bottom line and look at the damage that's been caused and do it for that reason. What am I going to trust you on other things? Your judgment and your moral character on. So these are the things that we need to think about when you go to the polls and you're electing these officials. It's like, okay, well, what's the reason why you're going for this stuff? And like, well, I would rather have someone that anyway, we won't get into that part. Wait a second. Blah, blah, blah. The findings are timely and signal that Virginians are ready for legislators to act on the reform proposals before them. That could happen sooner than later based on the pace that legislation has advanced so far this session. Hey, Kyle, does everything sound good? Boo, boo, boo. Actually, I can bring up something here real quick. Let me bring this up. I just want to check something out real quick. Wait, why can I not hear there? Oh, yeah, because I muted it. Wait, why can I not hear there? All right. Oh, yeah, because I muted it. Yeah, it sounds good. Looks good. We lost them all, Kyle. The findings, timely. Governor Ralph Northam and top lawmakers unveiled the legalization plan in mid-January on the first day of a short 2021 legislative session scheduled to end later this month. The companion House and Senate bills have moved through multiple committees and subcommittees, with more to come this week as lawmakers are facing crossover deadlines to hold floor votes and transmit the respective pieces of legislation to the chamber, to the other chamber. As I mentioned, as I just said there, bills in each Senate and House. Legislature passed legislation last year that decriminalized possession of up to an ounce of marijuana, replacing existing penalties with a $25 civil fine and no threat of jail time. The law took effect this past July. I'm gonna look for this bill real quick. Since, it's just you and I. Tie Stick, Sun and Paper, thanks for the follows. I completely missed Tie Stick yesterday and Sun and Paper 49 minutes ago. God dang. What was I doing? Looking for this bill. Let's see, Virginia. What was the bill? Bear with me. Hold the line. All right, there we go. And House Bill 2312. We pull this up. And we have no new information. House Subcommittee amendments and substitutes offered. What's the date on this? Substitute for Committee General Laws. Okay, gaming recommended on 129.20. Yeah, this ain't getting done. They haven't done shit with it. So the article we just read talked about how Virginia wanted to get it done. Yeah, it's not happening. I'll eat my words, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I admit 100% that there is a slight part of me that thinks I'm not as plugged in as I should be. we're getting there. It just takes time to get a feel for the legislative bodies in each state. You know, like you kind of get an understanding when you pay attention to what's going on in the legislative session and then what's happened in the previous sessions. I've researched, stayed up to date. I knew I was going to try and start JDR for several months now. And so during that time, try to learn a little bit more and more. But you also have COVID going on and everything's stalled. So trying to learn a back history of that, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Done a decent job.
It's a feeling. It's a feeling.
And I gotta piss again. We should get into this story, though. So something extremely fascinating. This is from sciencemag.org, by the way. That last story from marijuanamoment.net. Find out up-to-date cannabis information, marijuanamoment.net. Also, make sure you guys head over to Get Seeds right here. For you YouTubers that are watching or anybody in the future, Get Seeds right here in Discord. Let me use the restroom real quick, take a dab, and then we're going to get into this story. Talking about cannabis use discovered. Old cannabis use. I shall be right back as I hit the volume button, scroll up, and be right back at the same time. Apologies. Extended break there. You gotta go. You gotta go. Let's take a dab. Turned into a cozy chill sesh today. Any banger. This thing's chazzed beyond belief. Whew. Look at that gorgeous mug. Shoot. Wait, are you talking to me? No. This ugly face right here is no. It's all camera work and lighting. Honestly, without it all, I'd probably look like what Corpse Husband's name would look like if he were to show his face. That's what I would look. That's what I look like without all this. Chiseled like a Greek god. No, dear God. Chiseled like a homeless hobo. That's probably closer. We like it. I can never get the temperature right when I'm streaming. I always hit it too hot. It torches the back of my throat. This is going to delay things even more. Listen, I'm just trying to show you I put my money where my mouth is. I'm not just the owner. I'm a client. We'll get back to it in a second. There's just a few of you in here. I appreciate you guys. Foxes and Soxes. Get seats. Kyle. This is highly inefficient use of time. Wait, actually, I mean... What happens when you can't get the temp right? Alright. Fuck it. Let's go. Back into the news. Actually, give me 2 seconds here. I gotta take a drink and cough my ass off. I like being a doofus. It's the most enjoyable part of being me. It is. I think that's low enough. That's probably just right. Thank you very much, Foxes and Soxes, for hanging out with us again. Appreciate you. to the story now that we are nice and stony. Here's a song. Today, more than 150 million people regularly smoke cannabis, making it one of the world's most popular recreational drugs. But when and where humans began to appreciate the psychoactive properties of weed has been more a matter of speculation than science. Now, a team led by archaeologists Yang Yimin and Ren Meng of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing reports clear physical evidence that mourners burned cannabis for its intoxicating fumes on a remote mountain plateau in Central Asia some 2,500 years ago. Why can't we read like that all the time? The study, published today in Science Advances, relies on the new techniques that enables researchers to identify the chemical signatures of the plant and even evaluate its potency. We went into discovery narration there. I don't have to be up on the mic like I used to either. I think it's like a radio DJ, like safety blankie thing. It's like, you gotta have mic presence. Like I was telling Bike the other night, he's like, yeah, you can hear me fine. Yeah, you can hear me fine, right? Like, yeah, I can hear you. He's like, well, then you can hear me now? I'm like, yeah, that sounds 10 times better, dude. Duh. Mic presence? Your name is Mike. I'll shut up. We are in the midst of a really exciting period. I lost the voice. That's what happens when you snap into idiot mode. We are in the midst of a really exciting period, says team member Nicole Boyven and Max Planck Institute of Science and Human History in Jena, Germany. The paper is part of a wider effort to track how the drug spread along the nascent Silk Road on its way back to becoming the global intoxicant it is today. Cannabis, also known as hemp or marijuana, evolved about 28 million years ago on the eastern Tibetan Plateau, according to a pollen study published in May. This article is from 2019, by the way. Also from sciencemag.org. So it was published in June. May would be the month before. A close relative of the common hop found in beer, the plant still grows wild in Central Asia. More than 4,000 years ago, Chinese farmers began to grow it for oil and for fiber to make rope, clothing, and paper. I don't know why I said clothing twice, because I thought I messed it up the first time. Pinpointing when people began to take advantage of hemp's psychoactive properties has proven tricky. Archaeologists have made claims of ritual cannabis burning in Central Asian sites as far as back as 5,000 years ago. But new analysis of these plant remains by other teams suggests that early cannabis strains had low levels of THC, plant's most powerful psychoactive component, and so lacked the mind-altering properties needed to get high. One academic who works in Central Asia said he and his colleagues tried to smoke and eat wild varieties and got no buzz. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But also, if you were a human back then, eating the wild hemp, would you get high? Would your tolerance be lower? I don't know. Oh, there's a good chance that there was not enough mind-altering substances in here to make people get high in the sense that we think about weed on the commercial level. So THC being THC, we talked about it before. These guys in the Discord got in an argument. I don't even know if it was an argument. I didn't get to read all of it, but they were talking about indica, sativa, stuff like that. Terpenes in the chat earlier. I wish I would have got to be a part of that. They're probably glad I wasn't. Actually held out a conversation, hammer things out without having this big anvil come in there and ruin everything. But throwing out the idea of indica sativa. Go from there. Indica sativa, hybrid, whatever. I mean, sure, there's an argument that everything is hybrid today, which generally is the case. But even if you have strains that are classified traditionally or more specifically in the grow sense as an indica or sativa plant, when we're talking about things in the sense of getting high or affecting you in a medical way, whether it be relieving anxiety, getting hunger, try to put hunger and hungry. Hold on. I got a fuzzy in my nose. Whether it be from, I'm not too familiar with AIDS treatment these days, but it used to be AIDS and cancer treatment for, I would assume the cocktail is not as heavy as it used to be with the drugs that they have to take with AIDS. So anyway, cancer, AIDS, situations where your stomach is messed up and from multiple reasons, whether it be from drugs you're taking or from the problems that you're having physically, cannabis being one of those things that can help assist you in that way. So tons of different things. And most of these things that we find useful and not boring and outside of the normie custy range. Because listen, I'm telling you right now, and I am being kind of an asshat when I say this. I apologize. Y'all that are just buying the vape cartridges that are straight THC, distill it, and you're enjoying the THC and THC alone, and that's great for you, and you think it's the bee's knees in the world. It's not. I wish I could make that Joker face when he's like, that Joker face when he's like, and then you don't even make the face that's close to it. Heath Ledger, where he's like got his one side of the mouth up, another one down. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Jesus criminy. We're gonna get lost if we keep running down these little tree branches of no meaning and just ridiculousness, senselessness. It's entertaining to me though. THC is the THC. Boring ass shit, and sure, it's the elevator. THC doesn't even get some people high in the sense of rewind that back because I said that way too slow, misconstrued or whatever. THC, in a sense, relative to other people and what it does for them as far as like putting them in that elevator. Some people get to like floor 100 and are just overwhelmed with it, and that's the exact thing. You either THC doesn't do a whole lot for you, or it makes you too high. And by not do a lot for you, it may be doing what you need for you, but you're not looking at the entire picture, and you're being fooled when it comes down to it. I hate to say that. I'm not trying to call you a fool and a custy. When it comes down to it, really, I just want to educate you, and I'm being a smartass, so I apologize for that, but you are custody. You've been custodied. I'm going to explain to you how to not be custodied. And it'll lead us back into this paragraph of what we were talking about with the ancient cannabis and what it could have meant for people back then, even though the THC was not there. Since we suck at studying, I shouldn't say suck at studying, since we suck at testing for other cannabinoid levels, and we're still finding out what cannabinoids do what, how long they've been around, etc. So the only gauge that we really have at this point is possibly testing for THC in instances like I'll talk about later in this article where they've burnt cannabis and it's been inside of a tomb area, kind of outside the elements, inside of a burned, spot that is reserved for this, and has buildup, and then you just test for the buildup through that chroma spaco farctography shiz that I was talking about. We'll get to it here. They'll say the word. It's used to test the potency of cannabis, and then it's also in some ways. Okay, here we go. Chromatography and mass spectrometry. Applied gas chromatography and mass spectrometry. If I move the entire mouth up and down, I can say words. But used to identify a bunch of things, including the THC levels, percentage, etc. So, getting back to how cannabinoids and terpenes affect each individual, it's exactly that. They affect each individual separately, and while it's seemingly close to impossible to get customers, if you're a bud tender, you're somebody on the education side, I fortunately had the luck of educating people that were in the industry and bud tenders, managers, etc. People there's enough people in the industry that recognize this, at least in Colorado, in the retail side, that they understand the concept of all this, but implementing it, number one, even though the managers, owners, whatever, at the store level, advertising with these things, not separating them out into indica sativa, talking with your customers and ensuring they feel comfortable with the idea. It's an astronomical idea. I could talk about this for hours and hours alone in itself. Why it's important. Why it's important that education like this does happen. I don't think it necessarily needs to happen at the register, but having educational seminars or having someone on staff at these facilities. I'm doing a really bad job talking to you guys and just looking straight forward. I told myself yesterday, I'd talk to the camera. There's a time and place for everything, and the time and place for this type of stuff, first of all, we need to start from the core, and that is inside these facilities, inside dispensaries, educating them. Very few of these dispensaries invite people in to have education done, and when they do, turnover is pretty high. So you do get an opportunity to get with people and talk with them, move these ideas, get the proper way that things have been done. For instance, when I worked for the hash company, concentrate company, explaining how concentrates are made, how good concentrates are put forward, why the consumer should feel comfortable generally when it comes down to it with butane hash extractions, other extractions, the regulation behind it, and then talking specifically because the higher ends of hash makers and the higher end of products in our industry when it comes to, I was going to say concentrates, and that's 100% true, but when it comes to everything, all products in this industry, the higher quality terpenes and cannabinoids, which you have THC, and then everything else, we extract the essential oils from it. That's the terpenes and the other cannabinoids. Until we have better ways of separating these things, it really comes in these two hands that you think of, and you should travel from here on out instead of paying attention to that indica sativa, etc. The high quality of these things, THC to a lesser extent, because THC is pretty THC. THC is pretty THC, meaning that, what's the word I'm looking for? It is a robust. We have a robust system for extracting straight THC down to pretty accurate 80-90%. 90% is pushing it, but accurately to 80%. And then from there, are our tests that we're using, are those accurate? We can discuss that all we want, but there's two sides of those arguments that I'm talking about here. And then the other side, and this is very important because when you go to look for good cannabis strains, or you go to investigate the ideas that I'm explaining to you right now, the separation of indica sativa hybrid from your brain and how it affects you, and moving on to this stuff, the quality of those terpenes and cannabinoids is extremely, extremely important. And by quality, I mean how they are contaminated with other products that get pulled from the cannabis plant through the extraction process. And usually what happens is you have these high level, and this is in good things. You want, take for instance, for food. You want to have fats and lipids with food to have it taste good. Otherwise, it's bland. There's no taste. Gives it that chef's kiss, as they say. It's the same thing when it comes down to cannabis. We used to think, and because we weren't very good at it and we hadn't at the time perfected or even discovered full spectrum extraction, wet extracting from fresh frozen product, basically, is what I'm saying, which helps preserve the terpenes and cannabinoids, THC, etc., preserves the plant. The best, rather than drying it out and getting an extract from there that turns into a shatter, or if you whip it right away, a wax. So in this process, you're pulling off these waxes and these lipids, waxes and fats and oils, and depending on how those were grown, how degraded they were, what other contaminants are with them, some of that stuff does get pulled in and affects the quality of the terpenes, especially because you have a situation to where terpenes are so volatile and so, it's like a snowflake, and not like a snowflake in the terms that a boomer would call a zoomer a snowflake, or the other way around. It's not what I mean by no means at all, because I think that is banned on Twitch, so that's not what I'm saying. But like a snowflake, they're very, very, very purely representing science here. We went right back to it. What else can we use? They're fragile. Okay, and the effectiveness of them when it comes to you, the better that they're presented to you in their whole uncompromised form, the better that you're going to get an effect from them. That may seem like a no-brainer, and it is a no-brainer, but in the situation where we're at currently in cannabis, the vast majority of access to quality products at the level they should be, and the level that I'm kind of talking about right now, that very upper end, pure quality, is something that is probably very few have access to. Very small percentage, I should say, have access to. And that's extremely important, because until we have quality assurances and a roadmap for a consumer to be able to track down what terpenes and cannabinoids farther down the line, we're going to identify these terpene and science behind that probably before we do cannabinoids. There is a science behind terpenes and how they generally affect humans and what their pattern is, but at the same time, those are guides also, and not directly what exactly they do with every person, because every person, as we mentioned, affected differently by terpenes and cannabinoids. And you add into the idea that those cannabinoids and THC and terpenes all are built together, and they may do certain things, one thing individually. When you start putting them together as building blocks, connecting them, they affect the body in different ways also. So when it comes down to THC, you have THC being in these the vape pens that you generally buy, because when you do add in that terpene and other cannabinoids of a high quality extract into a closed container and shut it off, you then form diamonds. all the great diamonds that you see, bling bling, whatever, is basically just straight THC. THC is separating out from terpenes and the other essential oils, basically, is what's happening. So that's how we create diamonds. We don't want that inside of a cartridge. And that is the main reason why you do not see full spectrum extract cartridges on the shelf, is because the science for most companies is not there yet. I'm actually surprised that the company I worked for and a few others, the process has not expanded to other vape cartridges and other companies on a wider. But I didn't give a mic further. Anyway, in a wider sense, and the reason for that is everything that we've been talking about here. The quality and effectiveness of terpenes and cannabinoids, that top level of extraction, and it comes from top level growing. Your ability to separate and the ability to create a refined product that does exactly what you want it to do at a later stage gets better, the better that those quality of ingredients are. Man. I feel like I just swallowed a hair or something. Holy shit, I struggle with comfortableness, even in my most comfortable of moments. So anyway, that's where we were to finish off. I think I connected those dots with why it's important on the cartridges to select, to either not buy them or to go with a company and a product that is not separated and re-add it back in. Because you're paying a premium for just that distillate. You're getting separated from the other cannabinoids and your terpenes. There are ways to kind of make things yourself. There are ways to buy cartridges that work by yourself, where you can just put the dab inside the bottom of the little coil, use it that way. That just don't work for me. All right, and that leads us back on our road towards the story that we were talking about. For THC, it is not necessarily something that affects a lot of people. Trying to get rid of that, a lot of people. It's not something that affects a percentage of people the same as it does maybe you, that it launches you into outer space. Edibles are the same way. We're talking about edibles in this sense too. Edibles are created with a distillate generally, and not included the natural ratio of the other essential oils with it. So same thing, we're thinking cartridges and edibles, think of them the same way. Even though the effectiveness of them are different and the use are different, that doesn't negate the original maths of how you get to there. You know what I'm saying? Hold on a second here. Weird. It's like I inhale a hair and it's like stuck in the back of my throat. It's the most, I didn't even want to repeat it to you guys. Feels like it's still there. I hate myself right now. I apologize. Probably damage from vaping this stupid vape. Dear God, don't say that. Anyway, pulling the cart. Back to the horse, then back to the road. THC does not affect a certain number of people the same way that it affects everybody else. So in that way, those pure THC products can be less effective and are less effective for those people and kind of a waste in a lot of ways unless they're used as supplemental products. For instance, if you have something that is high terpene content or a full spectrum extract that's testing between 60 and 75%, you can smoke that first. Smoke something with your cannabinoids in it. CBD is what we're aiming for here. You know, it's probably got a little bit of CBD in it. CBD, we have learned, is a regulator of THC in ways, and it's also a regulator in other cannabinoids, but right now, as we talk about this, I don't know enough about them to be able to, go into detail about that and stuff. I don't know anyone off the top of my head that actually could do that. I'm gonna have to research that. But THC specifically, God, don't lose the train of thought. Interaction of person. Oh yeah, regulator of CBD. Where we're going with that. So you have THC, and you smoke THC or if you use CBD or smoke THC. God damn it. This is what happens when you throw yourself off. Lose confidence. If you use CBD before you use THC, you will get a lot higher. Generally. Obviously, every person is a little bit different. In the scientific terms that we were speaking of that, the reason why that is because CBD will open your cannabinoid receptors. So it opens those receptors, and for some people, a lot of people, you have a feeling of wellness and warmth that will kind of travel throughout the body if you don't have a lot of cannabinoids in your body. And then also, too, if you do have a lot of cannabinoids in your body, ingesting the CBD does a couple things. One, it can help bring down a high from THC. So it can open it up, and then when taken afterwards, in a varied dose, you would have to test it for yourself. It can also help bring down the high of THC. So the same thing works. The same drugs like Klonopin, Xanax, they work the same exact way. Psychedelic is how the THC is generally affecting you. Psychedelic, still a... Say psychedelic one more time, motherfucker. Drug. And in that sense, those drugs work at the... I'm not a doctor. They work towards the central point of what's affecting you with that, and remove that anxiety that's there. Is basically what it comes down to. It is this anxiety to be totally layman and stupid about what it is. In the future, we'll go in that. We're definitely going to talk about shrooms here in the future. I'm going to try and get the man himself on here, Paul Stamets, and also the author that we talked about yesterday, and discuss with them, the science of things and how this all plays out with on that psychedelic side. But getting back to THC and CBD, etc. My cannabinoid receptors are full of bong resin. All right, that's enough. Sit down. So, knowing what we know currently about the cannabinoids and the effects of each individual person, we already are at a point where removing the idea of indica sativa makes sense. And the idea of how we have classified those things, because they are all based on the smoking sense, the smoking side, they're based on terpene categorization generally, and not even a scientific sense on that way. It's something that we've grabbed from the growing definitions of cannabis and what growers should be solely identifying the cannabis plant as, and not anything that is a finished product. It just so happens that, we haven't been in a regulated industry, and the control of information and how we have learned things has been more of a culture and passed down situation, and paying attention to maybe some patterns that do appear. You have to admit that. But generally coming from the growing sense and the growing terms and the terpenes that go along with those is how we've got to that classification today with the flowers. When you even cut it down to the actual definitions, indica, sativa, ruderalis, in cannabis plants that are growing, we've got that bad. We've screwed that up too when it comes down to it. So an indica is not an indica, even if we were to identify and define it as we know it today. It shouldn't be identified as that anyway. All right. Indica is, let's see here. This is all stuff that you learn and then you forget about. Let me see here. Let me see if I can pull this up and hit you with this for real. We won't get into that side of it yet. I don't want to give you guys any misinformation on that growing side. We're not specifically talking about the growing sense of things. So, going into a dispensary, going into a location that is properly identified, that has good growing product, that's got those terpenes, etc. Best case scenario, you starting over with a brand new slate of things. We went through this like on the first or second show. I'll cut this down and then get back to the story. Taking notes for yourself, wiping your experiences completely off the map. If there's some things that you absolutely know, some strains do fantastic work for you and are what you're looking for, look at that. Start with that strain first, but still wiping the slate clean, taking notes, how strains make you feel, smelling these things, how the smell makes you feel. So the number one way of guessing how a strain that you're going to be getting, the strain that you're going to apprehend, whether it be from a store, whether anywhere, whatever it is, smelling that strain. Generally, if the terpenes are robust and potent enough, you're going to feel something. You're going to smell that. It's going to give you whatever, and that's going to generally transfer into a smokable feeling. But as we become more armed with information, with science, learning more about terpene percentages, what terpenes are in what strain, what the crosses are, etc. Not even what the crosses are. What that terpene content and what that cannabinoid content of that plant is, that's what you're going to look at. And that's where you're going to go in the future to identify what you want, instead of guessing between indica, sativa, hybrid, etc. You identify those terpenes, what helps you, what affects you in the future. You'll be able to go in, choose those without listening to a bud tender. No one else can tell you how it's going to affect you. No one else can tell you what strain's going to be the best for you. They can identify through THC, and why THC is important in a lot of ways is because there is an expectation of testing range. We know that testing range. We know THC testing relatively decent. I won't say well. but it should test between a certain range, just like an extract should test between 60 and 75% THC. Leaves room for your other essential oils, which are those cannabinoids and those terpenes. So that is the way that we use THC to look at quality in the sense of the strain and how it was grown on paper. But that also involves you being very knowledgeable. So all this is incredibly overwhelming for a normal person that's approaching a store or just trying to get into cannabis that is trying to use it for a medicinal reason and absolutely needs that effect that they're going for reliably well every time they go for it. Cannabis not necessarily that type of drug for everybody, and it's not going to reproduce the same result every single time, but that's what we're aiming for, is we're going for better quality, better customer assurance, better customer trust, and the ability for you to come in on all that. So it's very cool. You will recognize patterns in strains that are out there if you are smoking quality strains. You will. Anyway, getting back to this story. So just because THC may not have been something that could have got you high in these older cannabis strains, hemp, quote unquote, strains, doesn't mean that they did not include something else at the time that was effective for humans during that time. The more and more we learn about it, it does noticeably seem like, though, that there was not a lot of use before 2,500, 3,000 years ago. All right, pinpointing when people began to take advantage of hemp's psychoactive properties proved tricky. We talked about this. Archaeologists made claims of ritual cannabis burning in Central Asia sites as far back as 5,000 years, but new analysis of those plant remains by other teams suggests that early cannabis strains had low levels of THC, plant's most powerful psychoactive component, and so lacked mind-altering properties. We're assuming that. And even when we're talking about researchers and people in the scientific study industry, they're not armed with the correct information sometimes either, because we're still trying to get there. Because trust me, if they knew it, they would tell you. If they found some brand new shit, some things how to track this, whatever, we have to make sure that we pay attention, not just with studies, but with stories like this. How are we analyzing the history of data? One academia, we talked about that, said he tried to eat and smoke cannabis, did not work in that region that grows wildly today. So that's today. They gathered a bunch of feral wild cannabis plants and tried to smoke them. God, that must have been fun. I bet you they got a headache. And then try to eat it. Probably had it probably had effects that they did not recognize, and effects negatively that they did recognize because of those contaminants inside everything that we were talking about, that we try to remove, getting to a pure extraction product, and then have these highs be more clear and pronounced. Cannabis burned 2,500 years ago at the Jerzankal Cemetery, 3,000 meters high in the Pamir Mountains in far west China, was different. This is cool. And it's important that we talk about this was 2,500 years ago, because as we're learning around this time, 2,500 years ago, in other places, from 5,000 to 3,000 years ago, 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, we noticed the oldest proof of cannabis usage. But this, the earliest proof that it was actually used for psychoactive purposes, a la hotbox, this is fascinating and very cool. Excavations have uncovered skeletal remains and wood plates bowls, and Chinese harps, as well as wooden braziers. Braziers? Bras? No. Braziers? I think that's how you say that. That held burning material. All are typically of Sogdians. Sogdians? Sogdians. Oh, man. It's funny, you learn and you read all this stuff by yourself. And then you go to say it and teach other people, and you're like, yeah, it's the Sod people. You know, the Sogdians. Yeah, that's it. That's them. People of Western China respect no means. This is my ignorance being recognized. All are of the people of Western China and Tajikistan, who generally followed the Persian faith of Zoroastrianism. See, when I these things go over in the brain well, but the mouth doesn't like them. Zoroastrianism. I hate words. Which later celebrated the mind-expanding properties of cannabis in sacred texts. At Jerzonkel, glass beads typical of Western Asia and silk from China confirmed the long-distance trade for which the Sogdians became famous. An isotopic analysis of 34 skeletons showed that nearly a third were migrants. Radiocarbon analysis puts the burials at about 500 BCE. The wooden braziers... Hold on a second here.
Brazier.
All right. Brazier. Braziers were I want to make sure I'm saying that right. Braziers were concentrated in the more elite tombs. Yang's and Ren's team ground bits of brazier into powder and applied gas chromatography and mass spectrometry to identify chemical compounds left behind. They found unusually high levels of THC compared to typical wild cannabis. So, did the test, found high levels of THC with other things that of equal concentration and burndism, ash things, and this contained higher THC. Why? We'll talk about that in a second. Cannabis was apparently burned in an enclosed space, so mourners could certainly inhale the THC-laced fumes, the author said, making this the earliest solid evidence of cannabis use for psychoactive purposes. The reason why? Possibly. Regions high altitude could have stressed the cannabis, creating plants naturally high in THC, says co-author Robert Spengler. It is quite likely that the people came across cannabis plants at higher elevations that were naturally producing higher THC levels, he said, but humans may have also intervened to breed a more wicked weed, he adds. More wicked weed.
Why you gotta say that? Should just said more potent.
Methods are convincing, and the data are unambiguous regarding early use of cannabis as a psychoactive substance, says Tengwin Long, an environmental scientist at the University of Nottingham at the University Kingdom, who has researched cannabis origins. Whatever, the bag of my throat. But Megan Cifarelli, an art historian at Manhattanville College in Purchase, New York, who has studied ancient drug use, notes the aromatic fumes might have also had another purpose: to mask the smell of a putrefying corpse. Hey, listen. If this shit was burning in an enclosed space, and they were hotboxing that mamma jamma, y'all ever seen the leaf blower video? Is this something that we need to jump to? 6 of us in here. Let's do it. Let's jump to it. Let me search for it. You're gonna want to see this. This is gonna give you a little proof here. Let's see if I can. Pull it up quickly. Quickly. You'd think that this thing would be like at the top of the list, but it's not. All we got is some cars with their damn blowers. Park. Nope. Oh yeah, I was gonna get to that Steve Bloom thing. I completely skipped over that part of it. God dang it. 2 days in a row we failed on searching for the meme. I did look after the show for the beef jackoff soundbite, and I did not find it. I was very surprised. Starting to think that I just imagined it all in my brain. It was just entirely possible. Yikes. So we're talking about this. I was going to show you a video of us putting over a pound of cannabis and an ounce or two of water hash into a backup blower system that has a Joel Halen blown top on it, filtered through water. It's all a connected glass piece that we lit, turned the fan on, and inside of a 10x10 tent. We also did it inside of a warehouse twice. A 10x10 tent. I think I was a part of this 8 times total. Yeah, and yeah, that thing goes through everything in no time at all. I mean, within 30 seconds, you cannot see in front of you. Not saying that that's what this group of people did in this tomb, but, you know, we can imagine. We can have dreams, hopes that our ancestors thought of the things we thought of well before us. I think that's almost a guarantee. No idea is new. Yang and Ren's team thinks cannabis use was restricted to, wait, where was that? Oh, yeah. It was restricted to elites until potent pot began to spread across Central Asia through the Silk Road linking China with Iran. In 440 BCE, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote that the nomadic Scythians, who controlled vast areas from Siberia to Eastern Europe, made tents and heated rocks in order to inhale hemp vapors that made them shout for joy. So funny. Andrei Belinsky, an archaeologist based at the Heritage Museum in Russia. Notice how I skipped over the Russian town. Kappa. In 2013, began to excavate a nearly 2,400-year-old Scythian tomb that held gold vessels bearing residues of both opium and cannabis, supporting the idea that elites used the drug first. Yeah, around this time. 3,000 years, man. 3,000 to 2,000 years ago. These tombs, it seems to be something that in my opinion, noticeably a pattern that was happening in that part of the world. Here's the thing, though. How much do we know about Middle Eastern things, Northern Africa, and how cannabis was affected in that all of everything? That could be a very interesting topic also. Man, one thing I wish I could go to Morocco and do interviews in Morocco with people that just like know cannabis history for as long as it's been around. You know what I'm saying? That they've had these stories passed down through generations and generations and generations, and the education, the hash making ability, all that stuff that goes in that. I mean, that's That's an exciting idea to think about. Interviewing people that the origin stories in the origin areas of cannabis. Very cool. I know the guys from I know Arshawn was doing greenhouse seeds, dude. May his soul rest in peace. He was kind of trying to do that same type of thing. Caught malaria and died. Sorry, I'm not paying attention to chat. There was no one talking there for a minute. Kyle. Literally means cultivated indica beans of India. Yeah. And the term should be irrelevant to the smoker. Yeah, 100% should be irrelevant to the smoker. This brand new. Why refresh this? Let's do this one first, though. That over here. We got psychedelics still, so we still got this. We got this to talk about on a federal level, New Mexico and psychedelics left over. We're already at 2.5 hours. Yeah, buddy. That's what I'm talking about. It's thanks. Freaking, God, I cannot think of names and things when I want to. Thanks to San for setting the standard of 12-hour broadcasts of news every day. Coming for you. 3 leading champions of marijuana reform in Congress said on Monday that the issue will be prioritized in the new Democratic Senate this year. Tell us something we didn't know. And that the plan to release legislation in the coming weeks, they plan to begin a conversation about what the federal policy change will look like. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden, and Senator Cory Booker said in a joint statement that ending cannabis prohibition is necessary to right the wrongs of this failed war and end decades of harm inflicted on communities of color across the country. Boy, you're getting indigestion right now. It's weird. But that alone is not enough. That's encouraging. Lawmakers, each of whom has advocated for federal legalization, said that we must see, this is what I'm talking about with you guys, that Biden's plan for decrim and the things that he was wanting were out of touch. And having spent the last 4 years, Democrats fighting what they have had to fight, not even getting into things on a personal level, but just the operational capability of everything. And then before that, having Republicans heavy in control of laws being passed, and that turtle ass looking mother trucker standing there with 5 million bills sitting on his desk the whole time when he's leading everything. I could see the frustration. You could kind of take that into account, as we said before, about getting to know bodies of legislation and how things would go. I get the feeling that there's a lot of Democrats that don't give a shit about what Biden thinks with legalization, that they know that that's not going to be enough to move forward on, to move the mark, to move the pendulum, however, whatever term you want to compare this to. They know that ain't enough and are running with it. And I assumed, whoa, I don't know who that is. Probably those daily. God, look, I just leaked my phone calls and everything. God damn it! God. All right, nothing of value. Any of those screams. See, that's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. Get in a situation to where you panic. Don't know the controls yet as a streamer. You just start pushing things. That would have taken 10 times longer without this little controller. I think I'm staying focused enough today for the crowd. Let's focus up. Finish this up, stories wise. But the Democrats running with the idea of legalization, having a regulated system, and working towards sales regulation ideas on a, well, actually, I hope they don't. Hope they leave it up to the states when it comes to that situation of regulating of creating a regulated market that deals with sales, etc. Because if they do anything, the federal law could supersede and would supersede state laws, and that would not be a good thing. So we kind of need to make sure that these federal laws plug in with the state laws that have already existed and not have the federal laws be any tighter and have any way for these federal laws to put a stranglehold on any of the industries that have been succeeding for years now in states. So that's that we don't need that. We are committed to working together to put forward an advanced comprehensive cannabis reform legislation that will not only turn the page on this sad chapter in American history, but also undo the devastating consequences of these discriminatory policies. That's another reason why we're in, not only just because of everything Democrats have had to deal with, but the situation we sit in right now with social equality and racial equality. This is a big thing. Something that's important to a lot of people to move forward with, and will do a lot, in my opinion, but also at the same time, even if it doesn't change a whole lot in some areas, and how it wouldn't, talk about full legalization, I don't know. It would still be a positive momentum surge for states that do not want to, and people that do not want to do things that are federally illegal. I've known multiple people through my life, and the reason why they don't smoke weed is because it's illegal. Because of a job. It's illegal federally. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I'm not the type of person that likes to follow laws 100%. So I don't understand the thinking of someone that would say, I'm not going to smoke weed because it's illegal. If an unjust law is there, I kind of feel like I don't need to follow it. And I've paid that price and accepted that there is a penalty for that. So until you can't come to the table and tell me that I'm being a smartass, because I have literally put my foot where my mouth is in this exact topic. I've walked the walk. There's nothing to be proud of, by the way. It just means you failed at the job you were doing at the time. Horribly. Ron Wyden posted on his Twitter, "We can't address the country's racial inequality crisis without ending the outdated, dangerous war on drugs and its disproportionate impact on black and brown Americans. Senator Schumer and Booker and I agree to introduce legislation to do just that." That's what he posted when this legislation was introduced yesterday. Today would be the 2nd. This is a narrative that has been building in recent months, with Schumer saying on several occasions, both before and after the election, that he would work to move reform legislation with his new power to control the Senate floor agenda. Senate Democrats secured a majority in the chamber, the stage set for action. In the early part of the year, we will release a unified discussion draft on comprehensive reform to ensure restorative justice, protect public health, and implement responsible taxes and regulations. I told you. Senators, the senator said, getting input from stakeholder groups will be an important part of this critical legislation. All right, that's what I was looking for. The right setting on the headphones. The war on drugs has been a war on people, particularly of people of color, and in the federal marijuana prohibition is necessary to right the wrongs of this failed war. That's what Chuck Schumer said in his announcement. A bill to federally deschedule cannabis cleared the House last year but did not advance the GOP-controlled Senate. Lawmakers like Schumer and Booker stressed that Democrats reclaiming a majority in the chamber was an imperative for any comprehensive reform to pass this year. Giggity. After years of marijuana policy reform being neglected and mocked by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, that's the turtle I was talking about. His turtle looking face. Mitch McConnell. Just poking out of his
turtle. Guys, I'm Mitch McConnell, and I'm a turtle.
I like turtles, so I shouldn't call him a turtle. We look forward to constructively engaging with congressional leaders, other organizations, and those communities that have historically been impacted by criminalization in order to ensure we craft the strongest and most comprehensive bill possible to right the wrongs of the nearly century of federal cannabis prohibition, he said. I should have covered this bill first. This just came out, though. We didn't refresh it. I don't know. I should have gone with this first. This is exciting news. Representative Ed Blumenauer, who has spent decades working on an end to marijuana prohibition and is co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, said in a press release that he's encouraged the Senate's new majority is prepared to move forward together on comprehensive cannabis legislation. He added that the House passed Marijuana Opportunity, Reinvestment, and Expungement, the MORE Act, to legalize marijuana is a great foundation for reform in the 117th Congress. The new legislation would likely be referred to Wyden's panel, the Senate Finance Committee, for consideration once introduced. We look forward. The problem is at the very beginning is like, I see and where we're headed with this bill. The next step with everything is for this to possibly get stuck in committee. And maybe it's because I am cynical and all we've seen when it comes to progressive bills for God knows how long. Jesus, it's been way too long. Just die and not move forward. I do expect there to be a bit of argument on this. So whether or not this does move out of a committee, if it's a good bill, quote unquote, something that's loose, without being cut down to size, then that's something that's of a concern. We'll see what happens. We'll probably find out very quickly how much support this actually does have. And I think it's going to have a lot. I think it's all we needed right now in this situation. Because here's the deal. I don't mean this in a bad way. Maybe it is a bad way. I think there are some things, and I've already said this a minute ago, I think there are some things that the Democrats, even though they have a ton of respect for Biden and whatever, I think when it comes to the leadership and direction of a few things, they're just going to take the bar and run with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's very little direction from the top going to happen. That it's that in a way, kind of a shadow figure Biden could be. I can see him being in a few different ways for a few different issues, and this being one of them. Because we've already ditched the idea of decrim and gone far beyond anything that he's talking about right now. But this is exciting to hear. This is very, very, very positive. These lights are giving me a headache. Dimmer switch. Recent comments from Schumer, the majority leader, indicate that whatever bill is filed will likely include components of multiple pieces of legislation from last Congress, which he said are actively being merged. With Democrats in control, advocates and lawmakers are preparing for a deluge in marijuana reform proposals that could see floor action and make their way to President Joe Biden's desk. Although the president does not support full legalization and only backs relatively modest cannabis reform, advocates are hopeful that he would not veto or seek to undermine any broad marijuana legislation that congressional leaders decide to prioritize. I guess there is that. The veto. I guess I didn't really think of that because I in everything I just said, I would imagine that that would include him signing the Democrats and trusting them as a body rather than a single person standing in the way of progress. A whole body working as designed through the legislative process, creating a quality law should not be vetoed. And I would hope that Biden would understand that. And if he could do anything in my mind to help right the farks that he farked previously, helping author the crime bill, helping be a large reason why we are in this situation, or at least, a torchbearer of this. One of the first things he could do, number one, start letting people out of jail and change the sentencing laws. Two, do this. Sign comprehensive legislation that regulates cannabis, gives everyone, every state, the free ability to do what they have been doing and more. I might be able to give him a little bit of a kudos at that point. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong on anything we talk about from whatever, the fact that I voted for Biden, etc. I give him zero kudos. Zero. This is what happens when we're left with the choosing between the best of two evils. It's silly. And it's frustrating. That's why we're in this position in America. Anyway, apologize for lecturing you guys. Preaching to the choir generally here. The views and opinions expressed on the John Doe Radio Show by John Doe do not directly affect the John Doe Radio. You're the only one there. As I said. Washington, D.C. So we have this full joint statement. If you guys would like to read it, that is on marijuanamoment.net. And god dang, man, I gotta pee again. This is just crazy. I guess we have been going on for 2.5 hours here. Still got a couple stories left, and then may take a break and then hop into Hitman. We're gonna keep the motor running until it stops. That's what we're gonna do. All right, I'll be right back. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. It is the JDR. Woo! That was loud. This one's very video gamey. It's got that video game sound to it. Water in the other room. The faucet runs so slow. It's like, come on, there's a couple people waiting for me. Thank you guys for hanging out. I do appreciate y'all. Hopefully you're enjoying your stay here today on the John Doe. I certainly enjoy your company. We basically just talked about the same statements from this story in this story. Senator Worden is who we were talking about there. So we'll skip that. We'll get to this New Mexico one and read this psychedelic, and then I think I'm going to take a break. Maybe grab a bite and then get back and do some Hitman. First slate of what's expected to be several bills to legalize marijuana in New Mexico this year were introduced yesterday. Republican senator is sponsoring one of the newly filed bills. Oh yeah, wait. There you go. Sorry about that. A Republican senator is sponsoring one of the newly filed bills, while the other is being sponsored by a Democrat in the chamber. We talked about this day before. We talked about this on Friday. But because neither piece of legislation comprehensively addresses social equity issues, advocates are holding out hope for a separate House bill that's expected to be formally introduced sometime, maybe even today. A legalization bill was filed in 2019 by Senator Cliff Purtle, Republican, that would have established a state-run market, put out a new proposal that would create a private commercial industry. It would allow adults 21 and older to purchase and possess up to 2 ounces of marijuana. Home cultivation would not be permitted. Cannabis lounges could be licensed by regulators, however. 2% excise tax would be imposed on retail marijuana sales, in addition to local gross receipt taxes under the bill. Revenue from those taxes would fund implementation and support efforts to reduce impaired driving, with the rest going to the state's general fund and local municipalities. So we got a handful of millions to go to this, and then ga-junk. The rest goes into the state fund to get wasted. Not in the good way. If you get your tax rate too high, it causes the cannabis to be too expensive. It allows for the black market cannabis industry to thrive. It was important to me, said Purtle, to have a low tax rate so that we can put the black market cannabis industry out of business. Good idea. That's what I said too. Another way to make sure that this is successful and operates the way that these drug warriors would like to, accomplish. They would have liked to have accomplished in their anti-drug way. We could solve the issue. Now, granted, they have to deal with people using cannabis, but fark the couches, It's time for us to show how this can actually work, how a regulated market, specifically and especially with cannabis, and talking in future about other drugs, taking those off the table to be criminally prosecuted against. See how much better we thrive. Trust me. And to say that the money's not there, if there were to be an issue to come along with it, is a joke, because the money is there. All right, we put trillions of dollars, and that's a trillion plus dollar every year into fighting the drug war in America alone. Across the board, all told. It is absolutely astonishing the amount of money that we have put into the drug war. What arguable good is done? So to tell me that you cannot transfer that money And in fact, I argue that use drug war money to give everybody health care. And we end the drug war, we end criminal prosecution of drugs, and transfer that money that goes to police departments and towards the prosecution of that stuff into healthcare. And see how much money we got. It's a lot. And then we're not even getting in the idea of civil asset forfeiture, which is involved in all this, which recent numbers have shown that of all the felony crimes committed and the cost of all those felony crimes, civil asset forfeiture is more than that. The police and the courts have taken more civilly than all felonies value combined. That sounds crazy and untrue and wild. It's not. It's just that crazy and sounds that untrue and that wild. Yep. The senator's measure calls for a 21% tax on cannabis sales, with revenue being split evenly among cities, counties, and the state. That's not a low cannabis. That's not a low tax. I don't know what he's talking about. He's talking about this 2% excise tax. God dang. That puts retail and cannabis in New Mexico upwards of, that puts it close to 30% tax, if not over in some areas, depending on what taxes are already implemented. Because you got to think, you got 20% tax on cannabis sales, and then your local municipality tax will even give it a 7%. I think it's 7, 8, 9% where I'm at. We have decently high. You know, even if it's 5%, and then add on one other tax on there, 5, 6, 7, 8% total added on top of the 21%. That's in this ass hat right here, talking about how where were we at? This Purtle dude talking about how low taxes were the key, and then we go down here and we find out that this shit could be upwards 30+% when it comes down to it. Excuse me. You know, and that's not saying it's not high in other locations, and it's not ridiculous. You know, even here. Meanwhile, Senator Ivy Soto filed legislation that would similarly let adults 21 and older purchase and possess up to 2 ounces of cannabis. People could not cultivate marijuana for personal use, though growing up to 3 mature plants would be considered a civil infraction punishable by a $500 fine. Senator's measure calls for, oh, that's on this one. Why gotta be so confusing with all these separate laws and bills? Just get together and come to one conclusion, present that forward. Well, if it were that easy, it would probably be done that way. Blah, 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 tax dollars. But while both bills would do away with prohibition, advocates aren't especially enthusiastic about either proposal, as they lack the robust social equity elements that they feel are imperative to any move to legalize. As I told you, it's going to be the number one thing that people want to see as a part of all this, that in previous years, you know, as I said, the letting people out of jail, I'd like to start seeing that. But right now, that's going to be something that will cause the legislation or the initiative to fail. Because for some farked up reason, we just aren't there yet with that. The trust is it's not there. But used to be that when we talked about these social equity things, including, you know, even talking about letting people that had ounce or more misdemeanor charges or whatever, not even talking about felonies, because we aren't there in Colorado yet, talking about misdemeanor charges being recategorized as it is in California. In here, you can have it wiped. In California, you can have a cannabis-related charge either completely wiped or moved to a different category, a penalty. You know, for instance, like if I were in Cali and my charge that I pled to, possession of 8 ounces or more, felony in Colorado at the time, felony did not exist anymore 3 months later, but it still qualifies as felony, still have to go through the time, do the time, do the crime, do the time, etc., blah, blah, blah. But in Cali, you would have the ability to go in and have that reviewed by the courts and either thrown out, or in the case of probably most felonies, I would suspect this is the case. I don't know. It would be awesome if I was wrong and there were a lot of felonies that were dropped completely, but I would suspect in Cali, these are recategorized from felonies to misdemeanors. So, which is a huge thing. But not many states are doing it. I mean, that's like one area that Cali is exceeding on than other states have currently been successful on. So we would like to start seeing that stuff. But that stuff wasn't acceptable, you know? The fact that Colorado doesn't have something like that, and it was put into place after the fact for 1 ounce or more misdemeanor possession charge is bonkers, you know? It's crazy how far we have actually come in a short time, and the ability to expunge cannabis, and how the criminalization of it all has become more of an accepted reform talk. Anyway, beat a dead horse. Details of the bill haven't been released yet, but the wait, where were we at? While both bills would do away with prohibition, advocates, blah, blah, blah. That's why the plan is for advocates to throw their support behind a forthcoming piece of legislation from Javier Martinez, who has consistently filed broad reform bills since taking office. The details of his bill haven't been released yet, but the measure is expected to include provisions to ensure that there's diversity in the cannabis market, expunge prior marijuana records, and allocate tax reform to reinvest in communities most impacted by the war on drugs. When Martinez released a legalization bill last year, it did not provide for home cultivation, though it would have imposed a $50 fine without the threat of jail time for people who grew up to 3 marijuana plants. For her part, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham has repeatedly talked about the need to legalize as a means to boost the economy, especially amid the coronavirus pandemic. She said during a State of the State address last week that a crisis like the one we've experienced last year can be viewed as a loss or as an invitation to rethink the status quo, to be ambitious and creative and bold. And that's great that there are lawmakers that are using this opportunity to move forward with ideas that probably should have happened, ideas that should have happened years and years and years ago. Optimism is bolstered by the fact that several anti-legalization Democrats, including the Senate President Pro Tem and Finance Committee Chair, were ousted by progressive primary challenges last year. Additional pressure to end cannabis prohibition this year is coming from neighboring Arizona, where voters approved legalization in November and where sales launched last week. We're still within that time period of, and we don't even have anything to talk smack about Arizona with right now anyway. But even if we did have one thing, we're within that of the safe period and cannot talk smack about Arizona because of their accomplishment getting regulation and sales implemented as fast. Unheard of. Just within a few months. And in fact, during COVID. Like, what? So, yeah, I never thought I would say Oklahoma has such an awesome system that they have. Oklahoma's become an all-star cast of marijuana producers, etc. And then let's look at Arizona as an example. What? Wait, what? I mean, if you had told me this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have said, I would have argued that you were wrong, number one, because that's how I am. And two, I maybe would have held out belief in everything I talk about. There's always a capability that I think that the opposite will happen. life is never a solid guarantee for anything, most things. But there's only a few other states you could have added to Oklahoma that would have been more surprising. Arizona's not one of them. Not maybe Mississippi, Louisiana. Even Florida, I expected to have shiz going before now. But they have such a complicated system of rules there and a rulemaking process that's a pain in the ass. To change anything on a certain level, you have to have like 70% voter approval, which is so dumb. And then because of the history in Florida with smuggling and how drugs have had their history there, they have a very intricate and robust system of law enforcement there, and it's entrenched very deep. The roots are extremely deep. It's crazy. Black Tuna Diaries. I highly suggest anyone read that book and then watch the film that's attached to that. It will give you a fantastic inside idea of, you know, how very little separation there is between you and just the pioneers that got us to here where we're at today, you know, and help change the laws and change things. You know, everyday normal people that just, you know, either, and especially sometimes in a lesser sense, wanted to change the law, but knew the law, they couldn't, but knew the law should be changed, and did what they did at the time best. Took advantage of opportunities that existed. And without those things happening, and without some of those events and those pipelines, we would not have the culture and we would not have the progress where we are today. So it makes me proud. It makes me proud to think about things like that. It makes me sick to think that Mr. Platshorn spent almost 30 years of his life in prison for cannabis. Kind of sobers it all up right there. But then that adds into how much respect and it's such a weird thing to think about unless you're involved on this side of things. To give kudos to someone who spent 30 years in prison feels like a weird thing. You know, it feels like it's not right, but I mean, what did he really do? Shipped in cannabis on planes and large shipping containers on ships. You know, at a certain point, things get, you know, bigger than you kind of think they were going to get. You end up in situations you didn't think you'd get. And, you know, I ain't no bitch. Take this thing on. So, the only thing some of these people did is try to avoid the ridiculous laws and regulations that are there. Yeah. I don't think Mr. Platshorn killed anybody. Almost positive he didn't kill anybody. I assumed that's something you wouldn't tell another person unless you've been caught before. So, no. I've met him. And unless he's changed heavily in the past 30 years in prison, which is probably a pretty good chance that some shit has changed. He's one of the nicest, down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth, now grandpas that you could meet. That's the crazy thing, is that a lot of people that helped start everything and a lot of people that have spent this time in prison, extended years in prison, and that all they had to do to get there was just violate cannabis laws, nothing else. Cannabis and tax laws. They're not even heads, like, you know, necessarily like you and I, and it's normal people, and generally pretty damn nice people when it comes down to the people I've met. The one that we need to have an extended conversation with is the main man himself, the real Rick Ross. We almost had it long ago. We almost had the interview, and then Rick Ross got nervous that because he was still on parole, that if he were to come on a cannabis show, and because of how pro-cannabis we were, that his parole officer would not like that and he would get in trouble. So, the least of his worries, really, when it comes down to it. So, but it would be cool in the future to talk to him. Connections we made through him, like Kevin Booth did a how the West was won with weed, and then what was the first one? That was the one we really met Kevin Booth through. Film producer, documentary producer. He's the one that was the connection to all this, and maybe talking to Rick Ross. We got to interview him over the phone in prison for that interview right before he got out of prison. Crazy story with that. The Iran-Contra, the general, it's now on, that was on Fox News for years and years and years, the government. Here, slang this. You know, you don't even know it's the government at a certain point in time. It's just like this connection. And it's flooding in. And then you have to take the fall for it eventually. Maybe eventually you find out it's the feds. But it's too late. You're already punished. You're already screwed. Everything is dumped on you. Anybody who checks out that story, it's like there's a missing link between A and B. Like it's AC. So we know the A, we know the C, but this B, well, we know the B, but it never got its just desserts, how things should have played out. You get celebrated and then granted a Fox News show, I guess. All right, do I want to cover this bill today? Let's get rid of this psychedelic bill. Lawmakers in Connecticut and Florida have filed new bills to reform cannabis or autopilot, reform state laws on psilocybin. Wait, I did cover this yesterday. We already covered this. Talked about this. We won't do it again. Lawmaker, Connecticut and Florida. So many things I got going through my brain. Yeah, that's right. And then we talked about the book, etc. Blah, 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 blah. All right, I'm going to shut these lights off. Take a break. Probably get back on and do Hitman. See if I can avoid. I think I got a freaking migraine coming on. I'm just shutting off this light. Hold on. There we go. Oh, that already feels better. We're gonna figure something else out, like blue paper. Like, I wonder if we put blue tissue paper over it. It's not gonna work because it's not thick enough to tint the pigment. It would have to be off of it a little bit. What would work better would be a gel or one of those plastic sliders. And then we could do a purple one and make it purple. And then maybe I have like a little, this ring light right here. That, yeah, I'm gonna work on it later. Yeah. Anyway, you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you for hanging out with me. I do appreciate y'all. If you would like, make sure you follow us. Give us that follow on Twitch. We have the subs available. You can get yourself the mini JDR emote that you can use all over Twitch. And then also, I think, on Discord, too. You've connected your Discord account. So that's cool. Make sure you check out Get Seeds right here. Good friends and sponsor of the JDR. The reason why I'm able to turn this dial. Get Seeds right here. The man himself, Bike, doing great things. Access to information, quality. Get Seeds right here. Thank you, Kyle, for, since you're going to be here hanging out quite a bit, taking that sword mod duties. Thank you, everybody else, for hanging out with me. Until we meet again tomorrow with JDR, later today with video games. Where's my end scene? Oh, the end scene is not on this one. Y'all have a good day. Love you. See you.
Live. John Doe Radio